Hey guys, I'm TJ. This is my 1992 Chevrolet S10. So the backstory on how I ended up with this vehicle is I sold a Turbo LS swapped Fox body that I had. So I had a little bit of coin sitting in my pocket, and I was thinking, you know what, I really want one of those first-gen S10s. So I got on the groups and posted up, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I want a regular cab, LS swapped, with a manual. What do you guys have? Nobody really had anything that I was super excited about. And a friend of mine, who's still a great friend of mine right now, Nick, messaged me on the side, never spoke to the man before, and he said, hey, I know you're looking for a regular cab, but I have this extended cab. Are you interested? So we talked back and forth, pictures, video, great guy. He wouldn't sell it to me without me coming up and seeing it. I lived in Austin, Texas at the time. He lives in Dyer, Indiana, just outside of Chicago. So I said, okay. Flew up there, great guy, picked me up from the airport, drove me home to his house, talked trucks the entire time. We get there and he opens the garage and there's this truck. I'm like, wow, okay, this is nice. He had just put a paint job on it, LS swapped it. It was a 4.8 heads cam motor originally. NV 3500 5-speed, Blazer disc rear end, Blazer brakes up front, some 18-inch Riddlers on it, lowered a little bit. I was thinking, wow, this is a great truck. This is a good find. And we went for a test drive, fell in love with this truck. It was super loud, had like SLP loudmouths on it. Could barely drive it, it was so loud, but I was just smiling, you know, huge smile. So we did our deal. I hopped in the truck, drove it 15, 16, 18 hours, I don't quite recall, all the way back to Austin, Texas. Never missed a lick. He built a very solid truck, and I was very happy to have it. So I originally bought this truck coming up on 6 years ago from Nick. I drove it almost as a daily for 3 years, I believe. And then I sold it to a friend of mine who I had met through Cadillacs. We had CTSVs, and that's how we met. He ended up selling his Cadillac, and he was like, hey, I'm looking for a truck. I was like, well, okay. At that point in time, I'd kind of lost interest in it. It wasn't like a new shiny toy for me to play with. And I sold it to him, and he drove it for a year as his daily. And in between that time, me and my wife had moved out here to Arizona. Sold our house, got in over here, everything was great. And he messaged me and said, hey, I think I'm gonna sell the truck. I was like, okay, well, let me talk to my wife. Luckily, I have an amazing wife. Her name's Kat. She is perfect, and she let me buy it back. So the truck changed hands, came back to me. Basically, all he had done is tint the windows, and I think that was about it. He just drove it. Back then, it was on a 15-inch weld, exactly like what I have now with the 275 radial. I mean, it was more of like that I want to go fast looking truck, you know. And we got it back here, and luckily, again, my wife is amazing, and she let me do a little bit of stuff to it. I said, hey, I want to get a different transmission in it, because the NV 3500 was starting to brattle and make noise. I was like, well, if I'm doing that, I might as well put a motor in it too, because this one's a little underpowered living up here at 5,500 feet. So I found this motor. And then I was like, well, I'm going to continue on. Let's do some suspension work while we're at it. She wasn't too thrilled about that, but she let me do it anyway. And that's basically how I've come to have this truck again, is bought it, sold it to a friend, bought it back, started playing with it up here in Arizona, and that leads us to the next portion of the story. So I got into autocross last April, I believe, at the West event for the Pro Touring Truck Shootout. Originally, I wasn't even supposed to do it. I just wanted to go for the car show portion of it. And a good friend of mine who you've seen on this channel, Sean, with a Nova Speed, kind of talked me into it, and I'm glad he did, because it's opened up a whole new world for me that I'm very excited about. And I'm even got my wife on board, so she's on my back, or she has my back with this as well. So my first event ever doing any sort of motorsport was the 2021 Pro Touring Truck Shootout West in Chandler, Arizona. Let me tell you guys, I had a blast. We had just done a lot of the mods that you see now, most of them anyway. I was on C5 wagon wheels with C5 brakes, the current motor and trans setup, and I had a blast. Let me tell you guys, so much fun racing your vehicle. I ended up running in T2 class, which was fairly competitive early on, and then once the event went on, me and a friend of mine, Ross, kind of ran away from everybody else. I beat him in the autocross. But he did beat me in the speed and stop, and the difference made up for that, and he won the T2 class, and I got second place. So after that, it was all about mods. I need to go faster. I have to go faster. Actually, I think in Pro Touring Truck Shootout, I had positive camber in the front because we hadn't dialed anything in yet. I mean, it wasn't set up to do what it did, and it really shined. In my eyes, it shined pretty well. We weren't far off the pace of much bigger and better builds and people that have been doing it a long time. So that kind of is really what got it going. My wife kind of not so much on board at that point in time, but still being a sweetheart she is, she let me play with it some more. And then since then, we've been nonstop. We're going and we're trying to be fast. We want to be fast. So the front suspension setup on this truck is, it was one when I got it. It was essentially stock stuff, cut spring, Blazer brakes. The next go-round, after I actually bought the truck back, when I started to play with it, right when we went to Pro Touring Truck Shootout, just previous to that, I went and got a full ride tech setup for it. It seemed to work pretty good. So it had the upper control arms, lower control arms, their HQ shocks, coilover shocks, and their muscle bar. Works great. I would highly recommend it if you're going to have more of a street truck. It's very compliant, and it does the job. It handles pretty good. After the Pro Touring Truck Shootout, I said, hey, I need to go faster, just like everybody else does. So I changed up some things. At that point in time, it was full ride tech with a Blazer spindle. Then I went over to Southside Machine, talked to them for a little bit, liked what they had to say. So now I run their tall spindle, which is essentially a GM A-body spindle. So it's this big instead of this big on the spindle height, which drastically helped it. I use QA1 hybrid ball joints on it and their adjustable upper arm. Then I swapped over to C6Z brakes, 14-inch bare rotors, and kept the muscle bar. And it seems to work pretty good. I'm currently running about 3 degrees of camber, which is too much for the setup, I believe. And I'll probably take some of that out. I actually want to go to a shorter upper ball joint because I think it just gains too much camber under compression. And that should hopefully be the ticket. It seems to be that's about the options that you have in an S10, especially with factory pickup points, which aren't very good on these. So we have to band-aid the factory setup to make it work. And obviously we have to run a lot of tire to make it work as well. So on the rear suspension, it is still a factory RideTech 3-link. The truck unfortunately sits a little bit lower than the kit was intended for, so I think that might cause some of the traction issues that I do currently have. Oh, and to backtrack, I changed out the RideTech springs, which are Hyperco, front and rear. They came with a 750, 150, I believe, towards the back, and up front I went to a Swift 950 and a Swift 225 in the rear. And as far as that, that's really all I've changed on the rear suspension. As far as rolling stock on this truck, the first time anybody probably would have seen it, it was on black powder coated C5 wagon wheels, all 18 by 9.5 rear setup, so 275/35s. Now I'm currently running these gorgeous Weld RTSs in 18 by 11, courtesy of Mr. Kevin Phillips. Thank you for the sale, I do appreciate it. Now I'm on Nanking CR1s, 315 squared, as the channel indicates. 315/30s, and that helps this truck stick. It really does. We do have to, like I said, band-aid these suspension geometries with tire. I have bare hubs as well as bare 14-inch rotors mated with C6Z calipers that have been adapted to the spindles by Core 3 brackets. A great guy, great company to use. He can pretty much make you a bracket to put any brake on any vehicle. As I stated before, when I originally got the truck, it was a heads cam 4.8, iron block, had some Texas Speed 2.5s on it, and a 224 cam. It actually ran really well. It was a dog under about 4,500 RPM though. Once it would finally come up on the cam and make some airflow, this thing ran real good. Currently, it now runs a stock bottom end LS6, very low miles, probably 35,000. It's got Tony Mamo AFR 205s on it, with a Mamo spec cam and a TBSS intake. Runs on MS100, so I have constant fuel no matter where I'm at in the country. I don't have to worry about that. Transmission, it runs a Tremec TKO 600. Decent enough, I'd much rather have a TKX. McLeod twin disc RST and throwout bearing. Prior to that, behind the 4.8, it was an NV3500 with a factory Silverado clutch or whatever they came with at that time. And it seems to run pretty good. I got the motor out of Phoenix from a fellow that used to do Drag Week. Super nice guy, got a smoking deal on it, hence the reason I have this motor. The wife wasn't too happy with me trying to spend $8,000 to $10,000 on an LS3, which is exactly what it needs, but this is doing the job for me right now. Also with the motor, we're running Holley mid-length 1 7/8 headers. They are black ceramic coated, I believe. Down into a Y-pipe and one Cook's race muffler that's 12 inches long, something like that, with just a turn down, which will change here shortly, which we can talk about. To keep all this thing cool, we run a Griffin radiator with 2 Spall fans, and it seems to do the job along with these louvers up on the hood. Engine management wise, I do run a Holley Terminator X. Lance Drager tunes it for me, and it seems to work flawlessly. I have no issues with this truck at all. So visually on this truck, for a long time it was factory, nothing going on. It's actually not not a GMC like most people think. It is an S10, but it does have the bumper swap, the grille swap, horn button, and the glove box swapped over to GMC. It's just a little bit classier and looks a little bit nicer, we think. So it stayed like that for a long time. Then when I bought the truck back and did all this stuff right before Pro Touring, I found some factory white plastic fender flares that are apparently gold. And then of course I ruined them because the tires rubbed on them, and those are gone now. After that, we pulled those off after I got the wheels and tires from Kevin, and I ended up cutting the arches out so we could fit them in there because it would literally sit on the fender on top of the tire. It wasn't good. And I actually kind of liked the way it looked with the cut fenders. It had that real race car look, you know, the tires stuck out 3 or 4 inches. Anyway, talked to my buddy Ross at Premier Street Rods, who I travel with and race with, and this is what you see now. He did this wide body for me. It's all metal. Super happy, great guy to work with. I wouldn't recommend calling you if you have an S10 because he doesn't want to do another one. And he painted it up for me. His buddy Jason up there painted it, and I'm happy. Look at this. Who else has a wide body S10? Starting from the front now, if we go backwards, so this is a 9 Lives Racing splitter that has professional awesome hardware on it, quick releases, and splitter rods. Got this from Jesse at Level 7, who originally made it for Kevin's truck. So thanks for going that route, Kevin, and leading the way. Yes, I'm following you. I have your wheels and your splitter. Jeez. That thing seems to actually really work well on a road course. I can definitely tell that it's up front because the front end grip on a road course is fantastic in this thing. So up front we have our race louvers. These are the RX version. Apparently they're all wind tunnel tested, help get the heat out. Seems to work pretty well. I don't ever overheat with this truck. We also have some arrow catch hood latches, just for a little added safety, 2 points of connection instead of the one factory hood latch. Just doesn't seem right if you're doing 140 on a track. Sliding back, what else we got? We got some tinted windows. Can't go without those. The bed sides. Love the bed sides. All metal again. Ross did a fantastic job. Thank you, buddy. Going back to the wing. So that wing I've actually had for, probably 7 or 8 years now. It was for that turbo Fox body Mustang I had. It was actually a drag wing that I had a guy powder coat years ago. Never got rid of it. I was going to hang it on the wall. Never got around to it. It just kind of sat in the corner. And one day I was sitting here once we started getting faster, and I was thinking aero. Well, hey, I wonder if that'll fit on the truck. Get my tape measure out, go measure it up. I mean, it's literally like 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the tailgate on both sides, so it fit perfectly. Call up my buddy Sean. Hey, Sean, you know anybody with a brake? He's like, yeah, I got one. Let's try to do it. We go down to his house. The wing's just like 2 inches too long, so we can't use his brake. Luckily, he's got another buddy down there that has a shop. Super nice fella. I'd like to thank him, but I can't think of his name off the top of my head. He said, yeah, come on down. We'll bend it up for you. So we went down there, decided on an angle, put it in his brake, boop, bent it up, came home. Works perfect. Got some carbon strut rods on that as well. And as a whole, I mean, the aero package seems to be doing its job. I'd hate to try it without it, that's for sure. I wouldn't want to go on a track day with it, with not having it on there. What else do we have? That's pretty much it for visual stuff. Oh, that's right, I still have a roll pan. Ross hooked me up, put the roll pan on for me, because prior to that it had no bumper on it when the fenders were cut. And again, I still didn't mind the look of it without a roll pan. But we figured if we're going to do all this, we're going to clean it up, make it look nice and presentable, I'm going to put a roll pan on it. So we did that. Metal roll pan as well. Whole truck's metal, still pretty light, and it works. As far as what's going on the inside of this truck, it's pretty basic. It's mostly factory S10 stuff. I do have some Corbeau seats on some brackets that Sean helped me modify so we could get it lower. I still run a factory dash. Granted, it's gutted behind it. There's nothing there. I took out all the stereo stuff that I had mentioned previously when I first got the truck that I had installed, just trying to save some weight. All I have in there is the little Holly dash. I don't even have a big dash because I'm too poor for that. So again, no AC, no heat, factory seat belt still. I mean, it's basic. It's got carpet in the floorboards, or on the floor still. Things will change eventually when we get to that point of this video. I'll let you know what's coming. But for now, it's pretty basic. So as far as fuel system on this truck, currently it has a 10-gallon fuel-safe cell, Aeromotive 340 pump. I don't even know what regulator's on it right now. And that comes up to, obviously up to here. We run on MS100. The battery has also been relocated right next to the fuel cell. It's at the back of the bed, as tight as we can get to the front of the bed, just to keep weight in between the axle center lines. Originally, when the truck was at Pro Touring Truck Shootout, I still had a factory gas tank in this, which sits on the driver's side and was, I don't know, 18 gallons or something like that. And that's a lot of weight to have on one side of the vehicle, even with the driver. And that was with the battery located up front. It was on the passenger side, but it was way out on the nose. So again, in trying to get things a little bit more balanced, the fuel cell went in, essentially sits above the drive shaft up against the back of the bed, and the battery on the passenger side of that to help, again, with just some of the weight distribution in the truck. I mean, anybody that has a truck, you know, it's not good, especially with stock motor location, things of that nature. You can't really get too great, but we try. All right, now guys, here's the good stuff. As far as what we're going to be doing in the future on this vehicle, I'm currently sitting in line on a wait list. The truck will be getting a cage, something NASA spec that'll pass tech there. So accomplishes a few goals with that. Safety being one. My wife says we're going too fast without one. I agree. Chassis rigidity. It's going to help immensely with chassis rigidity because we're going to tie it all in, go through the back, go through the front. Then I'll get harnesses. Then I can actually drive and not be flopping around inside, which you'll probably see. That's the main one that we're looking for right now. After that, I need to address the rear end grip, which there's not much of it, unfortunately. And I think that's where we lose a lot of time. I'm not saying I'm faster than everybody, but look out once I get it figured out. We're going to do probably a torque arm in the rear to help with the forward bite. Kevin, again, I'm not trying to copy everything you do. It's just the way the world works sometimes. It seems like that's going to be my best option versus going IRS or anything else. I don't want to change to a 4-link. I already have the lowers, so we'll just put a torque arm on that and get after it. Up front, I'm going to go to a spline bar, because right now this bar, it just doesn't control the front end like we need it to. The whole truck moves and wobbles around, and I'm sure you'll see that in the videos from the racing. So we're going to do a spline bar, the cage, torque arm in the rear. I got to do something with a power steering pump. So turn one, if you watch this stuff, I could use some help. Again, I'm poor, working on a budget, bud. This power steering pump, it's gone. I have to rev the engine up to turn it in parking lot speeds, so that thing's got to go. I don't think I really want to do any more power yet because I believe that the truck makes tons. It does make tons of power, It's plenty for what we're trying to do with it. So I don't think I'm going to be messing with that. If you haven't noticed, I'll tell you if you didn't, I don't have the C6Z rear brakes on the truck yet. It still runs factory Blazer discs and brakes back there. So that'll be going on as well to help slow this thing down. Because speed and stop, I do struggle at. And I'm not sure if that's front end geometry up front, me still running a factory master cylinder and booster up front for the brakes, having bad brake bias. I don't know what I need to do. You guys are smarter than me. Watch the video. Tell me. Reach out to me. Let me know how to fix this thing because I want to go fast. As far as, future mods, I think that basically covers it. It's going to hurt the pocketbook, but the wife is on board with literally all of it because she sees how well we do with having some deficit, and there's room for improvement, and we're going to try to find it. So it seems like the truck market, at least in autocross and heck, even road racing, we're having a lot of fun, and it's growing. The popularity is just going through the roof. So my thoughts on would you want to get a full size versus say a mini truck like an S10 mini truck. This thing's 123-inch wheelbase or something stupid like that. Would I go an S10 again? Absolutely. Is there a lot of market support for it? Not really. Do you have to make things happen on your own? Yeah, most of the time. But are they fast? You know they're fast. Look around. What's winning a lot of these classes? I mean, we've got full chassis builds getting beat by stock chassis S10s on big tires and brakes with some motor work, a little bit of suspension. They're kind of like the cheat code, and a lot of people are kind of upset about it. But look, you chose your platform, we chose ours. We're at the same race at the same time. Can't be mad if we come out on top. I mean, we're doing it. Oh, golly. Guys, we can't change suspension pickup points on these as easily as, let's say, a full-size truck can. Their geometry, goes from nothing to fantastic with a bolt-on kit. We can't change that. Well, at least not yet. Nobody's done it, and not without a lot of fab work. And a lot of us, myself included, that's not my skill set. I work with my brain, unfortunately. Some people are much better working with their hands. I'm not one of those guys. So I usually have to pay people to do my work for me. Does that make me less of a man or less of a vehicle owner? I don't think so, because we all have our own strengths and weaknesses. But going with an S10, I don't see that you can go wrong with it. Shove some tire under it, especially a first gen, you could run a 275 without having to hack it up. There's off-the-shelf parts that you can make and be competitive with. I think that's a good idea. They're cheap to get into. Heck, you could run it with a V6. You don't need the straight line power because they turn pretty well, especially on tire. So if you're looking to get into something like this, especially in a truck, I would look to a little S10. They work pretty well, and heck, they're a lot of fun, and it makes a lot of people mad. Guys, I'll tell you what I love most about this truck is the look on people's faces when they're in their brand new sports cars at autocrosses, and they're wondering why this old piece of junk is going faster than they are. That is, I think, why most of us truck people do it. It's because we are at a huge disadvantage, and we make it work, and we make it happen. And that's just, we know we're being stupid. Like, why? If we wanted to go fast, we'd go get a Corvette or something with modern suspension and geometries on it and good tires. Put a race alignment on it, boom, traction control. We don't have that. Jeez, ABS. We don't have that either. But we're out there doing it, and that's probably the most fun that you can have is going out there with a knife, and you're literally going to a gunfight with a knife, and you come out on top most of the time too. That's what I love about this truck, and I hope that feeling never goes away, and I will continue to enjoy it for as long as I can. Yeah, so as far as like people seeing this truck for the first time, I've gotten mixed reviews. Some people love it. Some people kind of look at me and go, why'd you do that? It's a truck. Why are you trying to go racing? Why is it wide body? Well, because that's what I wanted to do with it. It does catch a lot of eyes. It turns a lot of heads. I don't know if it's, again, out of disgust or out of love. Usually it's positive. when I do drive it on the street, I get thumbs up and people with their cameras hanging out the window, because look at it. It's kind of a one-of-a-kind deal, as far as I know. I haven't seen another one. Have you? Yeah, we just, if you don't like it, let me know. It's not going to hurt my feelings. If you think I should have done something differently, let me know. All it does is open positive conversation, and maybe I can help you, if you have an S10, in your future endeavors to get one like this, or to how you would want it. I can tell you some of my trials and tribulations, what I would have done differently. Not much, unfortunately, because I'm pretty stoked, and I hope you are too.